Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started, even without most of the students. I don't know whether they're going to show up or not. I'm going to do a quick review of magazines, just because, well, and then I'm going to do a demonstration. Somebody asked me for a demonstration, so I'll go ahead and demonstrate some of the things that I would do off the top of my head. I might spend a little more time planning it than I have. So as I mentioned in most of the tutorials, if not all of them, the challenge of this one is not trying to keep my critique sheet, because there's no critique sheet for this. The challenge for this one is to be creative. And one way to initiate some creativity is to see what other people have done that is creative. And so I really recommend that you look at more than just what I'm going to demonstrate, because I'm not, well, I've owned and operated magazines before, but they've been newsprint-based local magazines that are not competitive with this, and they were basically newspaper magazines, you could call them. And so I did keep regular newspaper, the style and so forth, other than the front page was magazine-like, and it only came out monthly, and so it has a lot of the other meets other criteria that by which we declare something a magazine rather than a newspaper. But it was local in nature, and not slick, not A4 size or anything like that. So it was very different. And so I would suggest you go to some of the slick professional magazines that are out there to look for your examples, not mine. I will do some stuff today. I'm not going to try to do a cover. That would take too long. Your cover, if you're really into wanting to do a cover, as I said, that would be extra credit. And I'll let you, look at other magazine covers to decide how you would want to do your cover. So I'm going to start with, I'm going to do well, I don't know if I'll get done with 5 pages, but my recommendation is that you do 5 pages. And my recommendation is that your first page be almost all art as a beginning of your first story. And so I would choose my first story very carefully. I happen to have a couple of stories I think make very good magazine type stories. So I'm going to do my mountain hiking story and my racing story, because they have good art. If you don't have good art, as I said the other day, then go get some good art. You need, for the magazine, you need art to do a good job. And that part, what I'll be looking for is, I guess, is more of the artistic than what you've had to deal with newspapers. Newspapers are very cut and dry, you're in a big hurry, you put them out in one day typically. Even if it's a weekly newspaper, you probably don't do the actual layout till the last day, the actual production. You might take a couple of days to do it, but again, it varies a lot. But still, when it gets down to production time, you are in a hurry, and so you don't care a whole lot about being real fine-tuned and artistic. That's not the objective of most newspapers, and which sets them apart from magazines in part. So I'm just going to do a quick review, as I said here, and some of the things we'll be looking at, and then I'll actually demonstrate it. I'll go ahead and pass the attendance when a few more people show up, if I don't forget by then. So, these are, again, a couple of magazine fronts that I used in that I used in the PowerPoint before. I basically just stripped it down to a few pages that I wanted to emphasize and added 1 page to it, is all I'm doing today. This is what I presented last week. So again, some of the things that distinguish a magazine, you need to redesign it every so often to keep it modern. Design is really important. While it's artistic, very frequently it's quite simple. It's not necessarily real complicated in some ways, but in other ways, the desktop publishing may be more complicated. and I'll be demonstrating some of the options with desktop publishing. Again, illustrations are important, and they tend to bleed off the edge. I'm not going to expect you to bleed your graphics, because you can't. When you print it out for me, it will automatically put a half-inch margin around the outside, because a printer can't print without margin. Most frequently, when you have art bleeding off the edge, going right to the edge, it's because they've cut it with a trimmer, not because they printed it that way. Because I don't know of any printers that go to the edge. They might be able to left and right, but they're not going to be able to top and bottom, even if they could do it left and right. So typically bleeds mean they're going to put in a cutter and cut every one of the magazines, which also makes the magazine different, because they take more time to do the cuts and make it. And if they frequently, of course, they do a binding, and that also takes time, all the time that newspapers don't have. So you want to avoid cluttering. You want to emphasize illustrations. You need to try to figure out which of your stories. My suggestion is only 2 stories. And so going back to the concept of having 5 pages, it would be the very first page would be very art heavy, almost no story on it, maybe a little story, not much. Pages 2 and 3 would be your story, maybe some more illustrations and more photos or whatever on those pages as well, if you have them. And then pages 4 and 5 would be a second story. The first one might be have some fairly big art, but maybe not the full page. Among other things, you don't have, well, I guess I won't punish you if you go to 6 pages, if you really feel like you have enough art and you want to go to 6 pages to finish your story, but certainly no longer than that. And you don't get extra credit for going to 6 pages. So again, goals of the designers is to create an environment where the readers find an assembly of interesting stories, and they're created in a way that's more interesting than with a newspaper, more artistically. So they use more design devices to dramatize it, to get people's attention than they do in a newspaper, and hopefully in the process make the stories more readable and more likely to draw people into them. We mentioned bleeding pages, again, is mostly going as close to the edge as you can, maybe actually overlapping it, but still typically they're going to have to use a cutter to actually make it go to the edge. Other things, you start looking at the type a lot more. You have a lot more variety in the type. You may, they might set up a style where all the headlines were sans serif or serif. That would be up to the magazine. But you see, even on this front page of the Psychology Today, they have a mixture of sans serif and serif right on the front page. So a lot of them will allow themselves the entire range of type fonts and faces to choose from to represent a story, and what they feel like does the best job of representing that story, or being, that gives that, again, that mood, that environment. So again, just some more examples of type, and another example of how art could be used. You could overlay art over the headlines. You could overlay headlines over the art. You have every option available to you. You see the big cap at start. Again, Quark allows you to do a lot of that stuff. In some cases, I'm not sure it would allow you to do this. I have my doubts that it would be, well, what I'm thinking here is they created the A, and then they used Quark's ability to wrap around that A on an irregular basis. I'll show you some wrapping techniques today, or hope I will, how to wrap something that's not a straight up and down line. Again, you might use some lines. You can even, white lines are lines, and there are cases where to create the shapes you want, you might be masking with white lines instead of colored lines in order to get that, that sort of a shape. Again, you see some different types of titling, some different typefaces than what you might normally see, especially in a newspaper. Of course, you can also use things that are not photographs, whether they fit into what any of your stories, I don't know, but just to, you know, obviously magazines use more illustrations besides just photographs. And sometimes they use them, this is a table of contents, so they use them a very different way. And they'll vary them in both in color, black and white. They'll do other artistic things to them. They can you know, you start with a photo and then turn it into a piece of art. Again, I don't expect any of you will be doing this sort of thing, but I'm just, you know, suggesting all the range of things that can be done. Lots of color, obviously. Colors, they'll jump out and get your attention. Of course, depending again from magazine to magazine, what will interest you is a whole other thing. And because magazines are specialized, you tend to take a magazine that you're interested in that topic, and then you know, that's what appeals to you, so the content hopefully will appeal to you also. I'll go ahead and try to demonstrate some background screening and so forth, things that you can do with photographs. Anyway, that's, you know, again, that's another option to put type over photographs, to put create or use photographs to create a light screen in the background, things like that. I've already mentioned the ornamental sort of caps, big caps that then would be used as art. Again, this would, you wouldn't be using it with the regular drop cap function in Quark to do this. You'd have to treat it like art and do a wraparound as you would a photograph, a cutout of a photograph or something. So some of the stuff I'm going to be looking at today as I do my demonstration would be not just headlines. There's a little confusion here, so let me try to unconfuse you. Since they call headlines in a magazine titles, they also want to call the subheadlines subtitles, but subtitles in a newspaper mean something else. The subtitles are the 2 or 3 words that you might put every so often throughout your story. There they might call something like that more of a section head, section headline or a section title. They may have very, you know, so the vocabulary may not only be different, it may be confusingly different because, again, they start off with saying it's a title instead of a headline, and so they go to subtitle as their second tier. We go to subhead in the newspapers as subheadline, and then now we use subtitles in newspapers as being those 2 or 3 words spread through the story, a long story, and so you need to use another vocabulary with magazines. So just be aware that don't be too confused by that. I'll try to show some possibilities of backdrops. I'll use a photographic backdrop. Hopefully I'll have time to show you all the things that I want to show you. I'll also talk about cutout photos with wraparound text, try to show you some techniques with that. Of course, the initial cap, you know how to do that. I'll probably use it, but nothing that, most of you know how to do that. Some of you did make a mistake in doing that, in trying to do a raised cap or what you thought was, you know, a normal big cap. You just chose the first letter, made it bigger. But the problem with that is that in making it bigger, you also added line spacing. So the first line was way bigger. The line spacing was much greater than the line spacing for the rest of the story. You can't do a big cap that way. There are ways to do it other than using the drop cap function, but that's not, if you make it look odd by making, part of your first paragraph really wide line spacing and the next one and the next line small, that doesn't look right. You can't do that. If I have time, I'll try external and internal blur, pull out quotes. I'm not sure how creative I'll be with typefaces. I probably won't be for this demonstration. You can figure out if you want to be more creative with your typefaces. And of course, using dominant photo pictures and so forth. So that's just wanted to kind of summarize that. What some of the things we'll be taking a look at as I try to do the demonstration. And so I'll stop that and go to Quark. But I may just keep my, see, I've turned that off again. Keep this page on just to go back and remind myself what I wanted to demonstrate. Okay, I'm going to pause a second. Okay, so first off, as I just hit new here and started working on it, but I'll stop and let you see what I've done here. I, of course, created a new layout name. I started with A4 size. I think for consistency's sake, I've asked all of you to use A4, which is, basically, some close to 8.5 by 11, and that's what we would measure it at in America. Of course, it's called slightly different than A4. I think it's just called letter. But A4 is fine in the portrait style. I've turned on facing pages and allow odd pages on left because it doesn't really matter. But just for convenience, so that we can see more than one page sometimes, I turn those on. I don't really care how you set it up, but that's what I've done. I went ahead and set for 3 columns. I think 4 is too many. 3 is about the same width as with the newspaper. So I'm going to set for 3 columns, but the thing is you can reset the columns anytime you want to. As we mentioned before, this is where it might even be to your advantage to set 6 columns in order to have all the columns they're invisible, so all the columns do is help you line stuff up. And so as you're playing with different widths and so forth, having more columns might be helpful, but don't really use the columns. You wouldn't actually make 6 columns on the page. They're just guides to give you more options in lining your text up. So I could put in 6 in there, but I'm just going to go with 3, and I'll ignore the columns when I want to. So with that, I'll go ahead and hit OK. I think maybe I will right off the bat show how you can set up a background photographic screen, and then I'll probably kill it and go on with other examples instead. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hit Control-E in the keyboard. Of course, you can find this. This is how you load up your either pictures or text. So you can find it under File as Import, and that again, that it tells you it's to your advantage to learn some of the keyboard commands. You can work a lot faster, and as an editor, you want to work fast. So anyway, Control-E. And so I'm going, actually that's not where I want to be, that's the broadsheet stuff. I'm going to go find different content. So I'll go to editing, and I brought some content into week 14. So I've got some more one of the stories I'll be using is the hiking story that I had before. If I could, in just doing this demonstration of screening in the background, I'll just bring one of these in. Again, I'm not going to actually keep this, I don't think. But I'm going to go to Control 0 so we can see the whole page. But let's say I wanted to make that a screen in the background and put my text and everything over it. I would go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and put my box full size over my whole page. I'll need to, of course, get the photo bigger and decide what piece of it I want. And so I have, I have a photo, and it's possible to create your magazine content over a photo like this. I'm not sure if that's, again, whether you want to put some text over at the top. You might want more blue or less blue to accommodate that. But that's not the purpose of this right now. Purpose of this is then to show how not to make a regular photo, but to go ahead and, in this case, I'm going to hit right-click and go to Modify. And now we're going to increase the opacity instead, or decrease the opacity. In other words, make it more see-through. And you're not going to go all the way to 0, but I would just go down to about 43 and hit Apply. And as an example, let's just say OK for this. So now it's the same photo, but now it is less opaque, and you can work with a little more with darker colors. I can go even more less opaque than this if I wanted to. Obviously, again, just right-click and go to Modify, and you can do something with that. And so, if I, I'm not. I guess I won't rule out coming back and using this, but and maybe I'll just go ahead and leave this so we can go back in case I want to play with this a little more later. But for our purposes right now, that's all I wanted to demonstrate, was just that you can take a photo and make that your background to your page, and by reducing the opacity, make it more functional as a backdrop to the rest of your content. Bring in, this, by the way, I could leave the art right where it is, and again, bleeding would be cutting close to the actual margin. The actual printer needs some margin to actually print on, but to bleed is typically a cutting process more than anything else. So you print as far as you can, and then you cut to whatever the margins are that you deem appropriate. So it may be that they can cut somewhere in between. They may not need on the left and right side as much margin as they need in top and bottom. And so their cutting may vary depending how much margin they need for that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go to pages 2 and 3 and what I've set up here. And I'll go ahead and leave that first page. I'm not going to try to overlay over that right now. I want to demonstrate some other things first. But maybe I will start. I think I'll start with the same photo I have used in the past for the page 1 of the story, and put my title over the top and so forth. It's nothing particularly new. When I get to my second story is where I'm going to do a cutout, and I'll show you how I would do it. There's different ways of doing it, and I'm not sure that I have all the that I've learned all the tricks that Quark can teach me at this point. I haven't, because I haven't used it for a long time, and Quark might allow me to do more than I think. So part of my cutout will be done in IrfanView. I don't have Photoshop on this computer, so I will use IrfanView, which is again a free Photoshop, to do my cutout. I'm going to go ahead and start the attendance around, and presume most people that are coming are here or will still get to the attendance. Let me say before I go on with this demonstration, however, remind you that this is the last week of class, or last week of, how would I say this? Yeah, this is the last lecture. Next lecture I will be in Arizona, and I will be I'll be putting my lecture or videos on Moodle. So next Monday we will not be in this class. You will not be in this class, and I won't be in this country. Your tutorials this week will be the last tutorial for the Tuesday tutorials. I leave Wednesday morning. So anybody that has anything to present, if you still haven't done your presentation, then for Tuesday presenters, this is your last week to do that. For Wednesday tutorials, then next Wednesday will be the last day for presentations by those who have Wednesday tutorials. So there's only one day left for doing your presentation. If you don't do them, then you don't get points. I have been trying to encourage people to get them done already where possible. Okay, so again, I'll go to hit Control E in the keyboard, or you can go to File and hit Import and put in my photo first. Trying to see, I did actually get some other photos, some that I took from that same area, and as possibilities to use. And I'm sure I have in this folder the one that I was using. A lot of mountains in Central Asia. I thought about using one that I took from an airplane that just is looking down on the mountains. Now I can't see it here. But I do like that original one because it does have one of the people in the story in it, so I may just go back to that one. I thought I had it here, but it's apparently not here, so let's see what's in the magazine demo. This is, okay, I guess I put some in this instead of the other one. This is the one I was talking about that I took from an airplane going over Central Asia. And this would give us all sorts of possibilities. Again, this one might serve as a backdrop. I didn't draw a photo box in, so doing import didn't quite come in like I wanted it to. So this one could easily work as a backdrop to one of the pages, and maybe I will. That's I hadn't thought about that, but probably not for the lead page. So maybe I will. Maybe I will go ahead and create this, but move it over to page 2. And maybe, as I did before, reduce the opacity of it and just use it as a backdrop of page 2. So I might actually just go do that right now. Again, go to Modify, and under opacity, reduce it from 100 down to somewhere under 50. And just for now, hit OK and just leave it like that for now, and then make adjustments later if I choose to do so. So that might be my page 2. Now, if I, depending on where it appears in the magazine, we might be able to run over the gutter, but that I can't count on that, so I won't try to. I'll go back and draw another box in for my page 1. and draw that one in, which is the original one with the gal standing on the mountaintop, if I can find her. There she is. And again, for our purposes, I might leave quite a bit of blue sky in order to put in title, subtitle, or title and blurb, or whatever else I want to put in there. And so I might just keep her down in the lower part of the photo, and like that. And go to my text. And this is where one might debate where to put the blurb and where to put the title. We might put a blurb up at the top, and I need the story up here to think about that a little bit. So I'm just going to put a placeholder there for now. Just put a couple of letters in there so I can find it, and come back to that. I might, but even with the placeholder, I might go ahead and make that something other than black, and might go to a newer, different color, something a little darker. Still maybe blue, but darker blue possibly. Start out here in the edge, and then go in here and maybe put 100% cyan, make it as dark as I can there, but make it a darker blue. We want to put in some magenta, which is a reddish color. And I don't know if we need any yellow in it, but we will make it darker with some magenta, and maybe add some black to it. I wanted a pretty deep blue. So we can play with that, but with creating a new color, you have your option. You can use all this CYMK you want to make your colors any shade you want. As I said, that I think would be more of a blurb, so I'm going to reduce that size for now to maybe 24 for now, and put that, just leave that there a second, draw a new text box for my title. I don't want to use, even though I thought it was a good title I used in the newspaper page. I'm going to try to use something else here. Spelled it right because I can't see it, but we will. And over here now there's a dark blue in the color palette, you call it. So if that's what I want to stay with, try to stay within the blue range, I can do that. I might put a pull-out quote in here. Maybe in this part it's dark enough, I might do a white text on the back of it. So I'm going to go ahead and draw in the story over in the right side. And I'll go ahead and do that. And Control E to bring in the story. I haven't told it what size and so forth that I want, and I haven't set up any styles yet. I noticed that some of you did bring in text that was much too big, or much not big, but the line spacing was much too great. And so this story it does demonstrate that. It brought in style from Word. And so again, I might want to start off by hitting no style and hope to get rid of some of that which is in the background. So I'm going to set this up under paragraph style and get my video out of the way, even though it's not recording, it's still in the way. And hit a new style, and this will be body text. And so we're going to want to decide what else we want from like formatting. Leading right now is set for 120. And we want to go down to, I get confused myself because they do this differently than the other desktop publishing, but I think what we really want is 20, not 120. I think it's the amount of increase over the standard size is what they normally set up. And we're going to left align. I'm not going to justify my text in the magazine. I don't like justification anyway. I've already told you that. And magazines vary. Some use justified, some don't. So there's more variety there. And so I'm not going to. I will, well, I think for now I'm going to leave it. Let me go in here first. I need to decide whether I'm going to go 12 point or 10 point. In a magazine, I might go up to 12 point. I will let you have that. I wouldn't go bigger than 12, except maybe, again, as an intro paragraph or something, you could, but you, as I said, do have more options. I grant you more options on your style. I'm not going to grade, we're not going to keep my style sheet for magazines. So just looking at what else, if anything, I want to do. I do want it to be 12 point. I would like okay, I think that's all I need for that. I want the first line indent set up. So again, I'm not going to want a lot there. In inches, I was doing 0.13, I believe, in newspaper, and I guess for this maybe a little more, 0.15. Make it even, and we'll see what we have there. So it's a little bigger. I see the author put in some false spaces in front of them, so I have to go in and edit those out at the start of some of these paragraphs. So that's a pain in the backside when somebody does that. Okay, so I do have a body text style now that I've set for myself. And again, you can do things as you choose to do them. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in and pull out some, just do a little bit of quick editing here. I see I don't have the author's name on this, so I'll have to either make one up or go back and actually look and remember who wrote it. I think I actually have it in the... Again, if somebody else puts some false spacings in and stuff, you have just no choice as editor but to get rid of it, and it's pretty much has to be manual. So you can kind of see where it's at by the fact that it's not lining up right. Sometimes you just double click in there, you can kind of select it, but it's not always clear, especially now that I have a backdrop on it. So I was afraid I might have deleted a word here a second ago by trying to double click the front. In fact, who knows, I may have deleted the whole paragraph. Okay, so I got my editing done. So I'm going to leave that right now on that page and go back and try to decide what to put in as a blurb. Treat this more as a regional story rather than a story from the about the university. I might put something other than mountains, so I'm not sure if I want to say mountains. They also have some other beautiful hiking areas as well that she talks about, or that they have some photos of and that I have photos of also. But maybe where we're at now, just leave it in the mountains. Don't let still, one thing, some things are just, you have to be careful about, like you do not let headlines split, whether it's a magazine or a newspaper. You just don't let them split at the end of a line. So there you can hit Shift Enter and cut your line and put the full word inspiration on the second line. And as I said, we might find a pull-out quote we could also put into the page one as kind of our, I suggested in some of the tutorials that some of you attended that you might, in a way, treat your first page as kind of, well, that'd be maybe your most special page. You spend a little extra time with that as a lead into your, to show me what you can do more artistically. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do, is make as artistic a first page as I can. It's not the cover page of your magazine, but it's the first page of your story, and so that's a good place to try to show some different techniques and so forth. Okay, so I'm going to find a pull-out quote there also. I'm not going to do a shadow drop box here, however. For this backdrop, it would seem actually would be less artistic than doing it over the photo. So I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to destroy the power of the photo. Getting the well, I can remember a cell. That much I can remember, maybe for a few seconds. So I'm going to take this quote here and copy that. And maybe go into this area to, again, you may have to sometimes start your box outside and then move it in. Again, we don't use standard, let me blow this up a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to bring this up. It's 18 point here in a magazine. That would be okay, especially in a how I'm trying to use it here. So I can go ahead and bring this into this area perhaps if I want to make it white. If I want to use white on the lettering. As I started to say, we still probably use the technique of not actually using attribution like says in here. We make that another line, break that line off, and actually I should do a full enter there because I'm going to make this flush right and the other part leave flush left. So her name was a cell. So that you don't need says here, you just put a dash in front of it. Or a hyphen. If you put two hyphens, it will create the dash for you typically, which it has here. I'm going to select that and make that white. So I'm going to go over to text and find the, again, make that white and see if that's appropriate for that area. I think that looks fine here in this. Actually, that's probably smog from Almaty. It's kind of a smoggy city. So looking back, Control 0. I might try to balance this a little bit more, bring down this, and I'm wondering if the top is blue enough that maybe I should be putting that as white also. And so I'm going to go up and select that and make that white. I might also make it bolder so you can, so it will stand out a little bit more. Part of the question of the headline then, while I don't want to spend a lot of time on typefaces, but maybe it should be a serif type. And so I'm going to go up here and look at some possibilities. And see what Britannic bold looks like. So it's not actually a serif type, but it's it's a fancier sans serif. So I kind of like that. I'm going to leave that. Okay, so I'm going to, for now, be satisfied with the front page. I put a backdrop on page 2, so I'm not sure even how well that will turn out. It's kind of hard to see even right now. Take the text off and see what it looks like without. So that's again a view from an airplane down in the mountains of Central Asia. I'd have to print it out to see how that would work. In here, of course, we can go ahead and we need to decide how many columns and so forth. And so I'm going to go to the frame. I believe that's where we set up the columns. I guess under text. I'm going to go 2 columns on this. So even though I set up 3 on the page, that's not what I'm using here. I want to put in another piece of art, even though we have the backdrop, doesn't mean that we can't put art on top of it. And so we have, as far as the actual person here, we've got the watermelon girl, but I also have one of me up in the mountains, and so I might put one of me in here and pretend this is my story. In fact, I might even put my byline in there. So I'm going to go ahead and for now start it up here someplace, and I can adjust it in a few minutes and go see if I can find one with me in it. That's me climbing the mountain. That's kind of a dry mountain there. Me coming down from the mountain. Maybe I'll start with that one. I'm going to want the photo to be a little bit smaller than that, so we can get a little more of the background. I'm going to bring the actual frame down into the print area, but we can, I wasn't going all the way out to the margin. I'll put that in there. I think maybe I will give a little bit more of it and then bring the whole thing down a little bit and have the text wrap around it down in this area instead. Zoom in here. Oops, I guess I didn't get clicked in there. I am going to put a byline in there and pretend it's mine, although it isn't. And I'm going to center that. So that would be paragraph. But I also want to take off the indent off of, if you leave the indent on your things like caption or, well, anything byline is what I'm thinking here, then it doesn't really truly center it. It's a little bit right of center because of the indent. I'll go ahead and put in the drop cap. I want this to be italics, so I'll go to text and make it italics. And I'm going to go ahead and save this as a paragraph style, so it'll also save the lack of an indent, I guess you could say. So byline, in case I need it for the next one, and hit OK. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'll go ahead and set this with a drop cap. And so that one also I want to take off. I'll go to paragraph here and take off its indent. It looks better, drop caps look better if you don't have indents. I'll turn on the indent, the drop cap here. Here you have some options as to how many letters you want to make in the drop cap, how deep you want it. If I make it any deeper than that, it's going to look funny if I don't make the first paragraph longer. It's okay with 3 lines, although drop caps tend to look better with longer with more paragraph on them. So I might, for now, I'm going to go ahead and see, maybe try to go to a larger style. And I'm going to have to add some more paragraph to make that look very good. So I'm going to go and click in here and make, and since I'm presuming this is a regional magazine instead of a university, I'm going to put in the university, and I guess for our purposes here, I'll just leave it like fairly long. So your paragraphs, especially I made mine wider. They don't necessarily have to be as short as with the newspaper. And for the purpose of the drop cap, I'm going to leave it that long. Okay, I'm going to go back out, Control-0. We have it turns out that even at 12 point, this is most of the story. So I might cut it there. Let me see what I have left. I do have other art I could put into a page 3 if I'm going to stay with 5 pages. Although I actually used one page that I'm not really going to use, but I was playing with another page, as you recall, up here. Oh, I see, I did that by mistake, I think. Or is that what I put up there before? Maybe it was. Okay. Regardless, that's not part of my submission, if you want to call it a submission. So I'm going to draw another text box out here and see just how much I have left in this story, and use the link button here and link this text box to this one and just see what I've got here. Go back, and it looks like I have more than I thought I did. Oh, and I haven't done all the wraparound, so there might be story underneath the photo. I'm not sure. But I need to do my wraparound on that. Go to the wraparound, runaround, whatever you want to call it. I need to, it is already item, but it's, so maybe it has kicked some around, but it's not adequately pushed out to the left, so I need to push some out to the left especially. Get it away from the photo and push some out from the bottom, a little tight on the below it. So for now that seems to be adequate. I haven't put a caption in, and I'm not sure I'm going to get around to it in wanting to demonstrate some other things today. You know how to do a caption. So maybe on my next page I would take this over to the next page, and I've got some other photos I can put in real quick. And if I don't do captions, then I won't have to. I see I'm not all the way down on this picture here. I need to bring this down a little more. But I think there's plenty of photo under it, so that didn't matter. Okay, so I'll just bring this down. I'll just drag this box down into here. And so I know how much text I have. Magazines handle things differently, especially if all their stories are essentially take a whole page, then they may not bother to have continued on or continued from. And so as long as you keep your stories on one story per page, you don't necessarily have to do any continued lines if you don't want to. I'm not going to here. I'll presume that people will read it like a book and go to the next page. So where I put this, though, as a question, as I put in a couple more photos, I might want to put it towards the bottom. And so I have room for a larger photo up the top and a smaller one down the bottom. So again, I'm just going to, without captions at this time, put in a couple more photos and go on to my next story and demonstrate some other stuff that we haven't demonstrated before. Leave some space there as if I were going to put in a caption, and I'm not going to bother though today. And being the egomaniac that I am, I'll put another picture of myself in. But now I'm going to see my fat stomach. I will make it smaller, get more of the background, and less of me. And just how much, don't know. Okay, so I'm going to leave that first story as is. So I went with 12 point with this, and of course I have more photos than what some of you have at the present time. And whether you get some more, I don't know, but that's not a me problem, that's a you problem at this point. So some of the stuff you can do, this is stuff I've shown before, really in the newspapers, other than the backdrop. Again, with the backdrop, and this did switch itself. I think I accidentally had this chosen when it brought in a different picture. But again, with the backdrop, you're just reducing the opacity if you want to print over it. And you may have to practice with that a little bit. And actually print it out, have it printed out before you hand it in to make sure that it's going to print out okay. I do want you, as with this last one, to print this out for me so I can see it. And whether you print it in color or not is up to you. Depends how important your grade is, I guess. And again, we might look at some other. There's other options with the even with this story. They have some excellent dry areas to hike also. I think this is one I took. I probably have to reinsert that, I guess. I think there's a way of doing it other than that, but anyway, accidentally changed the content, and I wasn't going to keep this anyway, so I'm going to just, maybe since I did that, I might as well go get it. Okay, so again, this probably doesn't make the best backdrop, but again, for those that came in late, if you want to use a backdrop, then again, you can go right-click it, go to Modify, and just reduce the opacity down below 50% probably. I was down around 43% in the last one. And then it should be enough that you can put some text over it. Anyway, that's how you do some backdrop with a photograph. So just reduce the opacity. Okay, so I have actually need another page. So I'll go to Page and add a another one here to finish the last two. I'll add one more page. And so here I wanted to, before I get into this, I'm going to go to IrfanView. I've talked about IrfanView before. And so I'm going to open up a photo here and do a quick cutout. And it's going to be very quick. The quicker you do it, the worse you do at it. Or maybe I'll go instead to the folder and grab what I want to take. I'm going to use this one here. And I'm going to tell it I want to open it in IrfanView to make sure they give me the right one. So I'm going to save this first off, save in the same folder, and I'm going to call it Speed 1B. And I'm going to change it. I don't know that it'll help, and at this point it's probably too late to improve the quality of the photo by going to TIFF. This is still showing me the original one. So instead of that, I'm going to reopen and or open and get the TIFF file. And so here's 1B. I don't want to ruin the original one. Oh, that's still showing me there's TIFF. Okay, so when you're in order to see the editing toolbar, you need to go to Editing and turn on Show Paint dialog. There's different ways of doing this, but in order to speed it up, I'm going to start off by just drawing some boxes of white. Down here, you can choose different colors, but I'm choosing white in order to get rid of some of the background and do a wraparound on this. So I'll stay with that color. And I'm just going to start off by kind of looking down here where I'm going to want to end up at and how much dust I want to leave. So I can see at the bottom maybe wrapping around up to this point, but that doesn't make sense up here. He's at an angle. So maybe I will not have a consistent line down here. I'm going to go ahead and maybe plan to come into this area here. So I'm going to create white boxes where I just get rid of some of the major stuff real quick. And then I'll have to get close to fine tune it. I'll probably, well, I'm not even sure I'm going to use the top. In fact, I don't think I will use the top. Maybe I will. No, I'm going to take it right down to his helmet. When I use this photo, I'm going to crop out the top part. So I'm going to go right to his helmet when I do the cutout. Which means also probably down here I'll cut off the bottom also. So that will go. I'm just trying to get as close to the picture as I can with this whiteout, so I don't have as much to do when I zoom in. Okay, so I'm started off with that. We don't really see his face. This is kind of an odd cutout here. See, it's even a little bit unclear as where exactly to cut when you zoom in. If you're going to do a full cutout like this, you're going to have to zoom in. You want to zoom in as close as, well, the more precise you want to be, the closer you have to zoom in. Let me put it that way. So I'm going to start zooming. And it's, mad at me for some reason. Hope I don't have to reboot IrfanView. I'm going to hit escape and see if I can get it to stop. I'm going to go back to Quark as long as it's frozen up there a second, and just make sure I've saved it recently so I don't lose it, and rename the project. It's actually what I named it before. I don't know why it's not showing that now. I'll call it Magazine 3 just to be sure. Okay, go back to IrfanView and see what I've got here. I've still got a problem here. And it's not letting me escape out, so I'm going to hit Control Alt Delete and go to the Task Manager. I'm going to have to restart that one. I'm not even seeing IrfanView in the that's strange. Not even showing up. Okay. Well, I'm going to just try to close it then here and start over. Okay, so I'm going to have to I don't know. It was still open. Another screen up was still open, so I'm going to hit. I'll open that photo again, and maybe I will stay with the ping photo. I'm going to stay with this original, but I'll do a save as when I'm done. Okay, I'm going to have to open, under editing, open the paint dialog box again. And I'm going to, again, wipe out a lot of this photo with a big tool. Okay, I'm going to leave it like that for now. I'll go into a bigger tool. When you go to a paintbrush or something, you can use different sizes of it. So I already had it a fairly good size, but it'll typically come in as maybe a 1. And so I've already gone up to 5. Meanwhile, I need to, of course, zoom in as I was trying to do before when it froze up. Maybe I'll go to View and try to maybe zoom in a different way. Yeah, it's still basically the same thing. So on the keyboard, I can just hit the plus sign and just keep hitting plus. We want to, again, go in as close as feasible for the time I have, which is not a lot of time. This is not going to be as fine-tuned as a professional would do it. But the closer we get, obviously the less somebody will be able to see our work, which is part of what we're trying to do, is hide our work from them, so to speak. Let me see, I need to move this over a little bit so we can see it. So then we just start painting in here. I'm going to do a very rough job here, but hopefully you'll see that even at this, it doesn't look too bad. Get rid of all this garbage back here. Again, that's what I was trying to do with the white box, get rid of as much of that as possible so I wouldn't have to do it by hand. Photoshop's a little better at this, but it's not free, and IrfanView is. The main thing here is to probably get around, and again, I'm using a very big paintbrush, so it's not as exact as if I was using a smaller one. But so this is kind of weird in here anyway, because we can't actually see his face, so we're just kind of seeing the side of his head and the helmet. And here it's quite vague as to what we're supposed to be seeing here. Looks like there's still some imaging down going into here, but it's not. I may have to zoom out just to be able to see what I'm looking at here. Looks like it kind of goes into. I'm going to zoom out, which is just the hyphen, basically, so I can see. In fact, I might even just include my work here, even though it's not as precise. I can do it faster. Again, I'm using a big paintbrush so I can speed up the process, and not as precise with that either. Again, I don't have a lot of room here. get this done as quick as I can so I can get to the quark part of it. So I'm not going to be very precise here. I'm sorry. I'm just going to butcher it practically. Obviously, it helps also if you have room to work your mouse. And here I just have a little edge of this lectern to work with. So. It's a little clearer, a little unclear what I'm working with here anyway. I'm going to come out a little. Oh, I remember I didn't. So this part's going to be a lot rougher, than the first part I was doing, but I just don't have time to mess with it right now. So if you're going to do a cutout like this, you're going to, which I'm butchering right now, you need some patience, and I don't have patience right now because I don't have time to have patience. Photoshop's a little bit better because it allows you to select everything of a certain color, or it looks for certain edges and stuff to help select stuff for you in a better way than this one does. But again, for freeware, it's not bad. And it does some things I like better than Photoshop, actually. Okay, so going back out where we can see it, we've got kind of a cutout. And I'm going to save it. And as I mentioned, I'm going to save it under a different name. So I don't destroy the original one. So this is now 1D, and it'll hit save. Okay, so going back to Quark. Of course, I would rather start with a clean page on this, but I don't have it to start with, so I'm going to go ahead and draw my box in here. I'm going to decide what I'm going to do with the rest of the page in a second, but maybe I don't even have time to mess with it. But I'm going to draw something in here about the right size, I think, for what I'm doing, and try to find that speed D. A lot of this is I intended to crop, so I'm going to have to, and I'm going to want to make it quite a bit larger and maybe crop some off the back. Maybe something like that. I want to have time to at least, to show you how to wrap around this. Okay, so I'm going to click away from that. And I'm just going to, we've got just enough time to wrap around this baby. Probably the way that it's looking might be better to put it towards the bottom of the page overall. And so we have a nice straight line at the bottom, and we can wrap. I obviously did not make this very, let me see, I need to go out a bit. Okay, that's better. Okay, so how to do the wraparound? That's the question. And maybe I will go further up so I can wrap below it too. Okay, so I'm going to presume I have a headline in here, and maybe need a little bit more to, so I'll bring in the text box. I will draw the text box down into this region for our purposes today, and because I'm wrapping around a photo like this, I probably just have one column in this piece. I'll hit Control E and find that story. And I'll click in here and tell it I want the body text. I saved that when I was doing the first part. And so let me go to, I should have told it no style first, and then hit body text so that it wouldn't fight me. Okay. And make that my byline. Okay, so I've got I'm going to send this to back so I can get to the photo again. And with the photo, I'm going to go ahead and do the runaround. I need to again change item to let's see what it'll do if I say non-white items. I'm not sure. And some have some options here to work with, if depending how you've done the photo. But I'm going to go ahead and okay, so it did an auto image. It found the image. So I'm not even going to have to do it. I thought I was going to have to do this by hand, but I don't have to. So that's interesting. Okay, I didn't know. I just learned something new. So I did this all by hand last night as I was practicing, but by going, instead of, once you hit your wraparound or your runaround, if you go to auto image, it's smart enough, if you've done this in IrfanView or Photoshop, to find the image and to wrap around it. So I won't have to show you how to do it by hand because you don't have to. So going back out, so basically if you do your cutout, you can wrap it. Now whether I want this picture actually right here, or whether I want to, I've pondered where to put it. I've thought about putting it lower, and I might do that. Let me just try to finish a little more of this. Look up here. guess I didn't. I had intended to set a create a style for the drop cap, but I didn't do it. So anyway, here I'm going to go then back and take off the indent off of this. That's going to be a drop cap again. Drop cap. It's gone to 3 again, and I think in this case I'll just leave it at 3. Magazine isn't going to be consistent in its drop caps. It's going to make some decisions, and when to have big drop caps, you know, and make them ultra big, or when to have smaller ones. This one I think is fine at 3. I'm not going to play with that. Put in a headline. Again, do more of a hammer type head, as we'd call it in the newspaper design. This one may be a little bit more, again, trying to look for something that looks like it goes with motorcycling. Maybe try Rockwell Extra Bold. This is more of a standard headline that I'm used to, but I will might also play with some of your with the text with this also. Possibly, I'm just looking at some possibilities here. Put that flush right. This might be where I could, we will see. Okay, with this I'm going to also do a wrap. And I am going to show you what I was going to show you with the picture, but I'll do it with the words instead. And again, need to hit item. But this allows me to use this tool here, the select point tool. And if you hold down, it shows you some options here. And so you can put in some more points in your box, and so it does not have to be rectangular anymore. So I can put in some more points here. And when I go, I don't like this tool as much as PageMaker used to be, but you can make multiple points, and so now you can tell it where exactly you want. Now you can do this with art, but you can also do it with text. I needed some more points here to make it do what I want to do. Except I do have a point here. I can bring this over. I figure out why. There it is. Didn't. So I could even wrap it a little closer if I wanted to. Find my points again. Or I can go make some new ones if I have to, but why are they not showing up here? I'll go over here again and make some more points. So it's a plus sign, and the pointer right there makes some more points. Might make one more in here just to make sure I have more options. I see now some of the points are showing up here better. I'll go back and go to the actual, what do they call that? Anyway, it's where you can actually grab the points and move them around. So I will bring this on over, even a little tighter. Bring this, oops, I don't want to go that. Sometimes by, I don't want that. I want to make sure I need some more points I can see already. So I might maybe stop that there and go get some more, make some more points. So I'm holding down the mouse as I go out and select the tool within that tool. And so I'm going to make a point here, make a point here. I think I'll make another point. I'm just not sure how many points I need. I don't want too many, but I want it to work right. So I will then go back out and I want this to go into this area. This to go over to here, at least. Sometimes I'm not exactly sure. This is a new tool for me, so I'm not sure why this one sometimes reacts and sometimes doesn't. I feel like I need another. Now once I move that, then this seems to now let me do what I want to do with that, which is bring it up into here. So anyway, you can do some wrapping of that nature also. I see my byline disconnected with my by. I don't know what happened there. So I will go in and Maybe type by again and get rid of the other one. Oops. Don't know why it got stranded up there. Now it wants to go up there again. So let me just hit a couple of spaces. I don't know why I would have to, but something's got it caught up there. Well, let's go out to Control 0 and see what we have here. That's probably not the best in the world, but I wanted to show you how to use that additional wrap by, again, using this point tool. You can, again, hold it down, make points, take off points, and then manipulate points to do some other wrapping around things that don't do necessarily an auto wrap. Oh, this might have done auto wrap also. So I'm not saying it wouldn't. So again, here we did the auto image. It wrapped around the auto image. We didn't have to do all that work. But if for some reason it doesn't. Like if you had a photo, if I left this whole photo and I wanted the text to go over the photo, up and go around, then this auto image wouldn't work. So that's where I would probably have to do what I did with the headline. I'd have to go piece by piece, point by point, to put the text over part of the photo, but wrap around the main image like this one. So if I unwhided all of this, I could still bring the text over the photo up around the image of the person, because the rest of the photo is kind of dusty, kind of a dusty color anyway. So actually I could have probably put the text over it and it would have been fine. Anyway, that's not a very good headline for this, very big one. I see that my my headline is not what I'd prefer it to be, and it's probably after all that wraparound and stuff, kind of a hassle to try to do away with it, and we're about out of time anyway. So, well, maybe I can just let me see what happens if I try just to. I'm going to have to do something with the box. I'm not sure. Not sure what's going to happen as I do this. Oops, that didn't work. Putting down the wrong keys. Yeah, that wraparound kind of screws it up. Well, let me try to bring that down. I'll bring this down, and I'll bring this down, and then make the box bigger up here, and enlarge the main headline. Then we'll go all the way to the top of that. Yeah, that wraparound's kind of screwed this up. When even though I made it bigger up here, it kind of just made the stair steps bigger at the same time as I tried to do that. So I'd have to kind of start from scratch. I should have made sure I had that my headline was okay first. Well, let's see. Maybe I can make it work still. Okay. Well, I'd have to go in and fine-tune this, obviously. That's not working right. So this bottom part, like I say, when I started stretching the text box, it stretched the other points on it as well. So I don't have time to, well, let's see what I have time to do. go in there again and bring in this tool and see what I can do. Nah, I screwed it up already. Anyway, you get the idea. I should have made sure my top headline was what I wanted it to be before I started messing with the subheadline. Again, if I wanted to fine-tune that later, I'll do that after class. But for the moment, I will finish this by making another text box and jumping to that. So I'll link this box with boing, boing, and bring that over to here. They've got a more of a horizontal picture on this one, and so now this part, whereas I don't like changing widths on in a newspaper, column widths, and we only have one column on the first page because of the wraparound. This one's okay. You can, something like this, you can go ahead and create the 2 columns or 3 columns here. I might even go 3 columns on this page. And then bring in a big, pretty good sized photo up here. Again, you don't need jump lines if there are consecutive pages in a magazine. At least most of them don't bother unless they're going to someplace totally different. This one, maybe this photo here might have them racing around the track. And in order to get it fit, I'm going to have to go like that. And leave room for the caption. Some magazines, for some reason, don't try to do vertical justification. Some do, some don't. I would, because I'm used to doing it, and I think it should be done. This is I come down one more. Again, looking at how to make it vertical justify. This is pretty easy. Again, paragraphs can be a little bit longer in a magazine anyway. So I'm going to combine these paragraphs and try to make one less line, and now it evens out. So all I had to do is basically make one less line, and I had my vertical justification anyway. So I could put, either make the picture a little bigger, put in a caption, do whatever I want to do there. I won't bother to do it right now. Again, need more art, and I don't know what to tell you with some of your stories. Do your best art that you can. Then try to get some new if you need to. Again, I'm looking at, oh gosh, we're out of time. People are trying to come in. We did some cutouts, we did some wraparounds, we did some text over photos, drop caps, different type of headlines. So this is the sort of stuff I would expect you to be playing with. Try to make your magazine a little more artistic than your newspapers. I'll wrap this up when I'm back in my office, and particularly want to correct this wrap around in the headline, and then I'll probably call it good and print the video. So, okay, well, I finished my example, and I thought I was doing it on video, but it turned out I didn't. I created a caption here for this photo and just put it over the photo, so I didn't disturb the rest of my layout. This one here I did the same thing, but it wasn't showing up very well, so I created a new color that I call Light Rock, based on, used the picker tool down here, and so it kind of blend in with the rock that she was standing on. Not perfectly, but I mean, you don't have to necessarily. I don't like colored boxes that don't kind of blend in. But anyway, so I did it as it was. It is, I have thought a little bit more about possibly insetting a little bit more rather than take it right to the edge. It looks a little odd. And so I may actually go ahead and go like this and do some insetting. So let me see, insetting would be under, actually I think under, I was thinking paragraph. Is that right? Let's see. I particularly need to inset from the right. Let's see if that's doing it. Yeah. Okay, so there's the inset. And a little bit from the top as well. It looks like. Let me try some from the top. And sometimes that does not work very well. So so what did we do the other day that made that faster? I don't remember. We found a way where it did it somewhat automatically, and it increased the inset from the top, which sometimes it doesn't do properly with this regular inset function. Well, I'm going to go and try to do a little more. Clicking away, it still didn't come from the top. So sometimes, where was that we indented, that we inset the whole thing? I don't see it here. I'm forgetting now how we did it before. There is a way to do it all at once. How did we do it? Can't be that. It has to be inset. Let me go back to the text box itself. That was multiple insets here. That's where we were doing it, I believe. Let me just, it does all the edges at the same time. I'll have to create the just the box a little bit. It doesn't seem to do the top there as much as well. Anyway, so it's offset a little. It looks better, I think, when it's has some inset on it. So we'll leave that like that. Again, going to the other one. I was going to show you how to do this, and it wasn't that hard, really. I just, once I came back into it, I was just able to go back and readjust all the little buttons that we had created.
Hey, cool. How are you?
So I had to go, of course, back into here and go back into the, can't remember what that particular subtool is talked about, but it's just how to adjust your tools. Your once you created your little buttons, you can readjust them. I didn't actually have to create any new buttons. I just had to start adjusting from the top and move them until it wrapped around this. As I was mentioning, I thought I had to use this technique of creating and adjusting the buttons in order to wrap around the photo, but just to reiterate, once I brought in the cutout version from IrfanView, I did experiment with these, and originally I had it, usually we only had two choices, none and item, when we do wraparounds or runarounds as they call it. Here all I had to do once we had the cutout was say auto image, and it automatically found the edge of the cutout, ignored all the white area and came over. So that was very easy to do. Once I, so up here, instead of choosing item, you choose auto image. And if you've done a cutout like this, it will find the edge itself. So need to keep looking around. This wasn't a perfect cutout, as you saw. It didn't take me long, but if you do it fairly, if you enlarge the photo in IrfanView quite a bit, and just take a few more minutes than I did, and get as close as you can. Once you've blown out to a full view of a magazine, you can't tell. That the little bit of ragged edge isn't going to show up very much. So even for the little bit of time I used, it went, it looks okay. I see we're probably just a little tight in here. The is getting too close to the subhead line. So I can show you again how I, once I get in here, again I have to go to the this tool, go out here to this subtool, and it looks to me like I just need to come back out a little bit, just a little bit too close to the subhead line. And so, but this then got, okay, so it got up a little bit high and forced the excitement over. I'm going to bring this out a little bit also. Get the words a little bit further away from that subhead line, that line of the subhead line as well. So now it's a little further away. I think that looks a little better, although it may have fouled up my page too. Again, the keyboard command of to move, of just holding down the Alt button, does not work while you're in this tool. So I'll go back up to the regular item tool, and now holding down the Alt button does allow me to move around and see how things have finished up. See if I have to make some adjustments on page 2. I didn't, luckily. So making those few adjustments in the wrap around the subhead line did not affect this. So I made also earlier, when I didn't have the video on, I made another caption here. Gave myself plenty of white space on this page. Maybe not as much as I should have, but quite a bit. The caption came inside the picture here. Over here, I didn't do a caption on this one. I made one caption up here. That refers to both of them. And as I said, I made that caption. Try to blend in with the rock around it. And this one looked fine, just putting it over the basic photo. Again, to remind you, if you want to put text right over a photo and you want to, just use it as background, then you need to probably give it some opacity or reduce its opacity. So again, click on it, right-click, and right-click and go to Modify. And this is showing 100% opacity, which doesn't make sense. I'm going to get out of there and see if I really clicked in properly. Well, maybe after you close it and stuff, it kind of resets itself, and this is the new saved version. But I had it down around 43 or so % opacity when I left it. Again, there were questions about bleeding. In this page, this does more or less bleed. I can go ahead and bleed it the rest of the way if I want to the full page, but you have to understand that what they're going to do, the printer doesn't actually print to the full page. It prints and then it just they use a cutter to cut to the edge of the photo. So while you can go out to the edge like this, you have to understand you're going to lose part of this photo. So don't put any part of the photo out close to the edge that you want to keep, because they're probably going to trim in about a ½ an inch on each side in order to make it bleed. So you can do this. You can go ahead and in your version, in your electronic version, it'll look like it bleeds. So I could do this in here too. That's no problem. But you again just have to be sure that you understand that you're going to that they're going to literally trim the page. And so in order to make it look like, kind of like what it's going to look like when it bleeds, I will go ahead and adjust it. But realize some of this is going to get cut off. So I'm not going to put the caption any closer. I'm going to leave the caption right where it was because they will cut off. Otherwise, if I put it out to the edge, they'll cut part of the caption off. So you don't want to do that. So I can go ahead and it's already kind of out to where I would expect it there. I can bring the top up. This picture is plenty big enough to handle this. But again, I'm not going to put the blurb any closer either, because I want to have some space, and they're going to do some trimming of that later. So once I've done that now, make it look more or less like it will in a magazine. And for the electronic version, it'll look very nice. But recognize again that it will, the way they do it at a magazine is they just take a cutter and cut some of this. They take it out as far as they can, and they do some cutting. We can do the same on this side with the, I can get a hold of that picture in the background. And looks like this photo is not, okay, I'm grabbing the wrong thing. I'm going to undo. It seems like this is the background photo. Just needs to be enlarged also, so we'll go ahead and blend it right into the other photo. And we will try to get a hold of it and actually now enlarge the photo. We can also bring out this photo out to the edge. Okay, so I mean, it looks like we're bleeding all over the place, but you can't actually do that. But it can look like you did that, if you know what I mean. Hopefully you understand what I mean. This page I'm going to leave the same, but we'll make this one look like it's going to bleed. Okay, well, I'll end there, and hopefully this has given you some ideas of what you can do with your magazine page. You may not have the sort of photos I have to do it with. Do what you can. The better photos you have, even if you have to take some new ones, the better photos you have, the better you'll be able to complete the assignment. Okay, thank you.